Howdy folks, it's Dave Tyner with NVIDIA, and today we're going to be looking at NVIDIA Omniverse and the Flow plugin, extension, excuse me, and we are going to be actually taking one of our delivered assets, this Royal Palm. We're going to use a script my good friend Dave Carlson wrote that will convert this Royal Palm into a point cloud. We're going to use that point cloud as fuel to drive the flow simulation, and then we'll take a look at how to get subsurface scattering on the leaves so you get like the cool effect, because the cool thing about Flow is it actually in path trace mode does output light, and that light, as you see, can affect the subsurface scattering on the tree. So pretty cool stuff. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump in and get started. All right, so let's jump in here. So I have Create open. I'm using 2021.3.8. That is not publicly released yet, but everything that I'm doing is available in the public release version, which I believe is 2021.3.7. So we're not that far removed. All right, so the first thing you want to do is come over here to your Assets tab, go to Vegetation, Plant, Tropical, grab the Cuban Royal Palm here. You can do others as long as they don't have point instanced objects on them, they'll be fine. I'm going to do this one. Caribbean Royal Palm. Cuban Royal Palm. Okay, there it is. Next thing I want to do is, if you don't have it already, you want this this merge meshes. So if you come to extensions, you want merge mesh tool. So select that, and then once you select it, auto load it, and then you're also gonna want the script editor. So if you don't already have it, just type in script. Enable it and then auto load it, so that loads up every time as well. And that should do it as far as things you need. So once you have the script editor, go ahead and activate that. Come up here to the tab area. I docked it down here. You can dock it, whatever. Click open, and then open the script that this is Dave Carlson's script that will convert this to a point cloud. But we need to do one thing first. We need to merge all the meshes. So then I want to take and we want to merge all these meshes together. So I'm going to go trunk, bottom, top, leaves, and say window, merge meshes. I want single mesh with geom subsets. Click merge selected. All right, good. Excellent. And I just want to rename this to Royal Palm 2. Okay, awesome. And you can see it's all dirty. Don't worry about that. We're going to, we just need this to make this point cloud. All right, so now I select that mesh in the stage there. Come down here to my script, open in the script editor, press Control A, and this is going to write to your C temp file, just so you know. And I don't need this anymore, and run selected. So that'll take a couple seconds, and it will write 266,000 line, so 266,000 points. We don't need this anymore. I mean, you can keep it around if you want, but we already have the original up here. Okay, so now we have created the point cloud. Now in the next video, let's go ahead and create the point emitter on top of the tree. Okay, so welcome back. In this tutorial, we're going to be creating a point emitter. In the last video, we created a PTS point cloud file from the tree using Dave Carlson's awesome little script here. Now we're going to be importing that point cloud back into Create and using it as fuel to drive a Flow fire simulation. So first thing I want to do is go to Create Flow. Well, if you don't have Flow enabled, first go to Extensions, type in Flow, enable that, and then, oh, well, mine auto loads. Yours should too. Okay, so now Flow, we want to import the point cloud. So go to your C temp drive and World 1 Royal Palm 2. That's the one. And there we go. Now you see the point cloud in your stage over here. So now select that point cloud. And we want to go Create Flow, Add Point Emitter. Select the point emitter. And here under targets, click add targets, drop down world, point cloud, add. Okay, now we have our point cloud is the point emitter. And what we want to do is, because we don't want this thing to spontaneously combust, we want it to catch fire. So we just want it to be fuel, right? So let's go ahead and remove the smoke and the temperature and the velocity. And just leave the fuel for now. Cool. All right. So next thing you want to do is deselect that. Just select anywhere here in your stage. Right click, create X form, and call this sphere emitter X form. Okay. And then select it. Go to create flow preset, add fire effect. Now select your, well, you don't have to select it, just press spacebar. And you can see if you grab the X form here, and the X form enables you to move it around. So that's what we have here. So I can move this fire all around, and I'll move it back there. And in fact, I think I just want to move it so that it kind of does one of these. That's good. That's good. Okay, now the stage is set and we're almost there. So the next thing you want to do is, if you notice that flow objects work off of layers, and not like the USD layers, they have their own layer system. So if we come in here to the flow emitter sphere and we see that layer is on layer 2, but our point emitter is on layer 0, well, they're not going to interact because only like layers will interact with each other. So if I set this to 2 now, you're going to see a change. And now it creeps up. And it doesn't explode out of the top for a variety of reasons. The first one being that we have probably run out of blocks. And this is where we have a couple workarounds, but GPU memory limitation might get you. So first thing we can do is come down here, first stop it, come down to render settings, common, and then max blocks. Try to set that max block to something like 12,000. Now that is going to consume GPU memory. So it looks like right now I'm at about 7 gigs. So if I press it again, spacebar to start it, with any luck, we should see it blow out the top here. Nope. Nope. Didn't see it blow out the top. We need more blocks. How about 16,000? Got a lot of points. Not quite. Not quite there yet. That's okay. There's a lot of things we can do here. And in the next video, I'm going to show you kind of how to tune this to make it so the fires are more full, it's a little more dynamic. You can play with it. So see you in that next video. Okay, so we've created a fire. We've allocated a bunch of blocks to it, but we're still not quite blowing up out of the top of this thing like we'd like to. Let's go ahead and turn off the light there. Yeah, it doesn't do a lot of good, but it helps us see. All right, so let's go through some settings here, and maybe we can help this fire kind of be a little more aggressive. So your main flow settings here, honestly, are going to be in this advection setting. The flow simulate has a good one here, and that is density size. Now, density size is fire detail. The higher the density, the lower the performance on the machine, the more memory it's going to consume. But if you bump it up to something like 1, you can see, wow, the fire takes off. From this distance, it doesn't look too bad. And we have a lot more fire, and now most of the tree is catching fire because we have a lot more blocks to play with. I forget what the calculation is, but it's more than double the blocks. Also, what you'll notice is if I pause it, you can see the anti-aliasing here is kind of shaky. If you come over here to your render settings, ray tracing, go to anti-aliasing mode and change this DLSS to FXAA. That's it. It's going to hurt performance a little bit, but it's going to make that a lot less jiggly. Okay, so back here to advection. So some settings you might want to play with, or you're definitely going to want to play with here. So ignition temp, we're going to set that to 0 because that's going to help the fire spread faster. And we want a faster spreading fire. And actually summary allocate, smoke threshold, set that to 10. And what that's going to do is that's going to help preserve a lot of our blocks. So if I pause this and I come down here to flow render, ray march, and then I click on this enable block wireframe, you're going to see here's all the voxels that are, being consumed. And obviously the more smoke we have going up, the more voxels it's going to consume, the less we're going to have to play with down here. So that adding that 10 threshold is going to help with that, lessen the number of voxels you don't see up there. So we're going to go ahead and turn that off. And there's obviously a ton of settings in here. Feel free to play with them all or none, whatever you want to do. Cooling rate, might want to set that to something a little more aggressive, like 10. And you can do this all while it's playing, of course. And that's getting better. Yes. Also in advection, you have gravity. So gravity is the force that drives the whole simulation. So if I were to come over here and set this to something like 250, that is going to be basically our wind for the simulation. We don't want that to be that much. 50. 0. Okay. And then it comes back. So feel free to play with that. Those are, you can also animate that. Fuel per burn is another interesting setting. So the greater this value, so if I go to 0.5, you can see it like it lessens the fuel. But if I go to 0.1, fuel goes crazy. And I'll have to talk to Andrew Riedmeier about that because that is counterintuitive in my mind. So I'll set that to like something like 0.4. Let's see how that plays out. Spread. Okay, yep, well, that's looking pretty good. Okay, so now that we have that, and you can definitely play with some settings down there. And obviously you can move the sphere emitter around, play with it, set other areas of the tree on fire here. Whoops, must be out of blocks. Sometimes if you can't see the emitter, it means it's out of blocks. Just go ahead and stop it and move it to where you want it to go. So let's move it like out here or so. That's better. Now we'll catch that on fire. Yeah, fire. Come over here to advection and let's go like 100. Scratch that. Let's go minus 100. Now we burn all the way through. So yeah, so go ahead and play with it. In the next video here, I'm going to show you how to create subsurface scattering on the leaves and then maybe look at a couple of render settings. All right, howdy folks, welcome back to this tutorial on NVIDIA Omniverse, NVIDIA Flow, how to set a tree on fire, etc., etc. And in this tutorial, we're going to be looking at how to add subsurface scattering to these fronds on this royal palm. So if I just kick this off, done a little bit of editing since the last video. We are now rendering in path traced mode, and path trace mode is really cool because it looks a lot better. You can see the flow actually gives light to the stage. So if I come over here and turn off this distant light, you can see that as the flow creeps up through the tree here, it's actually lighting it up, and we're seeing the subsurface scattering take effect on the leaves, and so that's pretty neat. And that's where we're at. Okay. All right, we'll stop that. Okay, turn this light back on. Cool. So you can see we're already getting some subsurface scattering, and that's really easy to do, actually. And all I did was in my stage view here, I just right-clicked, said Create Materials, and then went and created an Omni surface. Now I already have my original textures from my different leaves in here, and I actually just used one. I think there is just one with some minor differences here. One texture, one diffuse texture. So I just grabbed all the PBR textures. I grabbed the albedo map path and the roughness map path and the normal map path, and I path those to my Omni surface material here. So whoops, do that. Now OmniSurface has a ton of different material settings, so you just have to find it. But the biggest things here are for your color images, anything that's a color image sRGB for the color image color space, very important. If it's not sRGB, it's raw. So normal maps, roughness maps, metallic maps, all set to raw here for the different color spaces. So that's kind of the big deal. So color space, roughness, and then another thing you're going to want to do here is in subsurface. You're going to want to enable subsurface, set the weight to 1, and then in the color image, just add your albedo map to the color image and set the color space to sRGB. And then way down here, and feel free to play with all of these settings. This is just kind of the default what I do. You're going to want to check thin walled on geometry, and then add your geometry normal map, of course, adding the color space to raw again. And that's it. And so then all I did was I went through and I selected the each material. I said select bound objects. Of course, it doesn't have any now because I changed them all. But if I select this guy, it's going to say, hey, this is what all these guys are. And here's all the meshes they apply to. So, all right. So now that we have this this little fire sim looking badass in the way we want it, we probably want to render this out to frames, because rendering it out to frames is going to get us this really nice looking render instead of the if we just play it real time, then we have the denoiser here in path trace mode, and that's blurry, and we have to pause it. We'd rather watch it the whole way through and create a movie that our friends will admire us for. So super easy to do that. You just come over here to rendering, movie capture, and you have all your settings here. I usually like to render these at 30 frames a second. I recommend before rendering to path trace mode, because that's going to take a while. You render a play blast real-time mode here, and I've done that here. So just I know what the timing is going to be and how many frames to set it for. So I don't want to sit here and render hundreds of repetitive frames or frames that aren't very interesting. So that's pretty cool. And I just rendered that out real-time play blast, so that's cool. Right here under rendering, I'm going to set it to path trace mode. Samples per pixel. So these two are pretty important. We're going to deselect motion blur. So samples per pixel is like concurrent samples. So if you're doing 100 samples, I want to do 4 samples at a time for a total of 100. That means for every frame, I want 100 samples, and I want the GPU to calculate them 4 samples at a time. So I'm going to go through 25 iterations on the GPU. That is going to cost time, and there's a point at which this becomes inefficient, and you'll just have to play with those numbers. 4 might be close for a single GPU. But just so you know, 1 at 100 samples per pixel. Sorry, 1 at 100 total samples would be 100 iterations, 250, 425, et cetera, et cetera. But the larger this number, the slower your iterations are going to be. It's a mouthful. And then, so you have your resolution up here, you have your output path, and then you can change your PNG to an MP4, and that will, using FFmpeg, it'll compile an MP4 at the end with all of the PNGs. But keep in mind that it's also compiling the PNG, or it's keeping the PNGs here. Yeah, we're doing great. And that these can start taking up space, so you might want to delete these once the MP4 is complete. So it's a real quick 101 of rendering, and good luck, have fun. I hope this is useful, and I'd love to see whatever you guys are out there making. All right, see you later.